Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to WatchYouWant.com. Today we're going to double our pleasure and double our Daytona. We've got a double header right here. It's appropriate as this is the motorsports watch, so continuing that sports theme, I'd just like to remind you that this is the official winner's gift of the 24 Hours of Daytona every year in Daytona Beach, Florida. This watch is iconic because its association with motorsports stretches back to the origin of the name Daytona, applied to this model for the first time in 1964 with the advent of Rolex sponsorship of the famed speedway in Daytona Beach. Now, what you're seeing here is arguably the most appealing and desirable modern Daytona reference, which is based on the 16520, and what you have here is a proper 16520 stainless Daytona, and right here a 16523 Rolex Daytona. Now this watch right here is a combination of stainless steel and yellow gold, and this watch here is pure stainless steel. What they both have in common, in addition to screw-down crowns, 40mm cases, sapphire crystals, and automatic movements, is the fact that they are both powered by the iconic Zenith El Primero movement. Now Rolex purchased this watch's movement from Zenith, starting with the advent of the 16520 in 1988, and produced these models right up through about 2000 when it switched over to the 4130, which is the current in-house Rolex movement. But the bottom line is that these watches are so much less common and so much more desirable than later in-house, because in the world of Rolex, rarity is everything. And Zenith, unlike Rolex, had a very limited production capacity. First and foremost, Zenith is a small manufacturer in Le Locle in Switzerland. It's not the Geneva giant with the satellite factories in Biel that Rolex is. They got one location, and they were building at one point the El Primero for a catalog of clients that stretched to over 20 companies, plus El Primero movements for their own watches branded Zenith, and that's only about 50,000 total. That was their limit. So you take Rolex's portion of that, from 88 to 2000, that is not a lot of watches by Rolex standards. When you talk about Rolex, you tend to talk about production flights in the hundreds of thousands. And that's why this watch, now discontinued, always constrained by small factory capacity, will forever be considered a Rolex classic and one of the most desirable Daytona references. It's also desirable because it launched the modern Cosmograph Daytona. And here's the thing. Before 1988, the Daytona was very much an anachronism and kind of an oddball in the Rolex lineup. It was a 37mm case. A lot of people thought it looked kind of ugly. It had a broad dial and a skinny bezel. It wasn't automatic winding. It wasn't very tough. They were using a series of value movements that were robust enough, but they weren't El Primero tough. The El Primero is an absolute workhorse by itself, but Rolex gets that El Primero a Bausch, and back in the day, they would hot rod it. First, adding their own microstella adjustment nuts to a balance of their own making, creating a free-sprung balance, and chronometer certifying the watch. So there's a lot of Rolex content in here. Even if it is an El Primero base, it's not simply a transplant of a Zenith heart into a Rolex body. Rolex definitely leaves its mark, and it also does that by detuning the watch to 28,800 vibrations per hour. And that's key because Rolex is ultra-conservative. While the Zenith El Primero is basically tough as steel, Rolex said, no, we want more. So in addition to timing them through the chronometer test, 2 weeks, multiple positions, multiple temperatures, and you're not going to find many Zenith El Primeros that are chronometer certified. Most of those that are going to be in the Rolex Daytona. But in addition to that certification, Rolex did all that mechanical work and even some aesthetic work to the movement to very much make it Rolex's own. And the El Primero is regarded as watchmakers as one of the all-time greats. Maybe the Rolex in-house caliber will get there, but it hasn't yet. And the El Primero has proven its mettle in everything from Zenith's own watches to Panerai to Rolex. You know, when Rolex admits that what Zenith can make is better than what they can make in-house, that's a pretty impressive mark of distinction. Now, stainless steel 16520s are kind of iconic because back in the day, these watches were as good as gold. Better, in fact. There used to be waiting lists months long for the stainless steel model. Rolex knew that it was a collector favorite, so they constrained supply. They made it very hard to get the stainless Daytona. This was always known as kind of the white whale watch, the grail watch, the ultimate bought new Rolex for collectors. It was the kind of thing you could not just walk into an authorized dealer and get. And so this watch has a permanent aura about it today people still talk about the scarcity of those stainless steel Daytona references from the El Primero years, and it's not like they're making any more of them. Today, this remains very much a watch in demand and an outstanding piece, an icon of an era, and because of that legendary scarcity, a real fan favorite among connoisseurs of collectible Rolex. Now this model right here, the 16523, features Rolesaur and a sunburst pattern gold dial. So Rolesaur is something Rolex has been making since 1933. It's a combination of stainless steel on the hard contact points and then beautiful 18-karat gold, either rose or yellow as in this case. And it's a beautiful effect that's semi-formal, very elegant. It's kind of gold used for the sake of accenting, which in my opinion is the best way to use it on a sports watch like the Daytona. Now what this has going for it, that this one does not, is a beautiful radial burst dial that contrasts quite dramatically with the black sub-registers. The effect is incredibly masculine and incredibly impressive, and I would say that as a watch that can be worn with a suit or a bathing suit, this is a fantastic choice. It's got just enough elegance about it that it could pass for a dress watch, not a trackside companion for all occasions. This one's very much Daytona 24. The combination of the white dials and the black sub-dial rings is very sporty. I would say this epitomizes the trackside companion for a driver, a crew chief, an engineer at the 24 Hours of Daytona. This, I think, is the classic motorsports Daytona, and I think this epitomizes Rolex elegance in the 1990s. Now, these watches do have slight variations in their dials. This one right here is 1991. It's an X series, if you're following the Rolex serial number flowchart. So, roughly 1991, it features the older subdial hash mark patterns and the famous inverted 6 at the 6 o'clock on the hours sub-register here, whereas this one right here features the penultimate Rolex El Primero Daytona dial, the one that was the final to feature the tritium markings before the changeover in 1999, but it features the inversion of the 6, now a proper 6, right side up, as well as the slightly less cluttered, bolder printed subdial indexes and numerals. Both of these watches are fantastic, instant classics, certified collector's items. You show up with these to any watch meet, people will love it because it's a Rolex and it's an El Primero at the same time. And again, this is the watch that launched the modern face of the Rolex Daytona. This watch right here is available in outstanding condition from our website, watchyouwant.com, and this watch right here is available in outstanding condition from watchyouwant.com with full boxes and papers. This is a 100% complete set. Check these watches out. Check out the high-res photography so you can see the subtle distinctions of this vintage dial. Again, the older style El Primero Daytona dial with the gorgeous sunburst metallic, and this one, the newer penultimate tritium loomed dial, and you can see the patina starting to eke out in contrast to the white gold indexes and the white dial. This one really has a gorgeous patina that collectors seek, and it's coming along quite nicely. This is the one for high contrast because although this has a tritium patina, it's somewhat lost against the gold dial. This one for patina, this one I think for uniqueness. Check them out on our website, watchyouwant.com. And before I sign off, just in case you've never seen a 40 mil Rolex on a 6 1/3 inch wrist,